Welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm your host, Nina.
And I'm Matt. And today we're looking at day 2 of Poles Apart, Why Polar Bears and Penguins Never Meet.
Okay. So in part 1, we learned that it's because actually polar bears and penguins live in the opposite sides of the world, and it's a common misconception that they actually live together. So, what other common misconceptions are there about other animals? Do you know of any, Matt?
One that I think of is that people often refer to like chimpanzees and gorillas as monkeys, but they are in fact not monkeys at all.
Okay.
They're, monkeys are part of the same animal family, but things like chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans are actually apes.
Oh.
So that's why, they don't have tails, and they're actually much smarter on average than monkeys are. So
that
apes,
makes sense.
like chimpanzees, and gorillas are actually much closer to us humans than monkeys.
Okay, that's good to know. And another one that I can think of is how bats are actually not blind.
Really?
Yeah, they're not blind. Even though they use the other senses, their vision is actually not too bad.
Okay, so even though they can see, they do use that
sound
echolocation. They use sound to find their way around in the dark because it's hard to see in the dark.
Yeah, but they're actually not blind, even though people say, you're as blind as a bat. Or another one would be that goldfish don't have such
3-second memory, right?
Or 3 or 5 second memory, yeah. They actually can remember things up to several months.
Yeah, well, I remember that when I would feed my fish, even when I would put my hand above the bowl, they would swim to the top to get the food. So I always thought that they must be able to remember something because they wouldn't be able to remember to do that every day.
Yeah, so it's just been exaggerated by us.
All right, well, let's find out more about this myth about polar bears and penguins in today's article.
Okay.
Though it's true that polar bears have it rough in the Arctic, penguins have it even worse. Antarctica experiences fierce freezing winds and winter temperatures as low as minus 60 degrees Celsius. Still, penguins have developed abilities to survive these extreme conditions. Their bodies circulate blood in a special way that prevents heat loss. Also, they can swim almost as well as any fish and dive deep to hunt a variety of sea creatures. Given that conditions in the Arctic are generally less extreme than those in Antarctica, why haven't penguins migrated there?
Welcome back. Today we're looking at part 2 of our article, Poles Apart, Why Polar Bears and Penguins Never Meet. So as you mentioned last time, we learned that it's because they live in very different places, and even though they're both suited to, live in cold environments, they just don't live in the same place, so they never meet.
And continuing with the article, though it's true that polar bears have it rough in the Arctic, penguins have it even worse. Oh.
Okay, well I wouldn't want to live in either of these places, but now that I know that it's even worse for penguins, maybe I have more respect for penguins.
And they're so cute and small and tiny, and they endure so much. Poor things.
Antarctica experiences fierce freezing winds and winter temperatures as low as minus 60 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, that is really cold.
It's very, very cold. I've never experienced anything even close to that. And it's amazing that penguins can live through that and live in that kind of environment.
Yeah. Still, penguins have developed abilities to survive these extreme conditions. So extreme means very big or very strong. In this case, it's just very, very, very cold. For example, the Middle East experiences extreme heat.
All right, let's go to Hanny now.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天要继续来看关于北极熊和企鹅的文章。虽然北极熊在北极的生活确实很艰困，但是企鹅的处境更加严峻。南极经常会刮起冰冷猛烈的强风，冬季气温甚至可以到摄氏-60°诶。那尽管如此，企鹅已经发展出能够在极端环境下生存的能力。好，单字 extreme 这是形容极端的、极度的。那这边还有一个重点是 it 形容词加 that 子句，可以表达什么什么是怎么样的。句子里面这个 it 是虚主词，用来代替真正的主词 that 子句。举例来说 ，It's crucial that you follow the instructions carefully。仔细遵照指示很重要。好，那我们接回课文中。
Welcome back. So, their bodies circulate blood in a special way that prevents heat loss. Okay, so the penguins can move blood around their body in a way that helps them to not lose heat the same way that me or you would lose heat if we were in negative 60 degrees. Also, they can swim almost as well as any fish and dive deep to hunt a variety of sea creatures.
Wow, I've seen it before. It's so pretty.
That's right. So they dive deep to hunt these creatures. So to dive means to plunge into water or to jump into water head first. So you're not jumping in with your feet first like you might normally do, but you're actually diving. So when a person dives, usually you put your hands above your head and you jump into the water. When we're talking about diving deeper in the water, we mean just going deeper when you're already in the water, and going deeper and deeper into the water head first is also diving. So these penguins need to dive down deep to catch fish. So we have an example sentence. The bird dived into the river to catch a fish.
All right, continuing. Given that conditions in the Arctic are generally less extreme than those in Antarctica, why haven't penguins migrated there? So when you migrate, it means to move to another place. Okay, so why haven't penguins migrated there? Well, I think it's very difficult.
It's a long way to go,
Yeah.
a long way to swim, because as you probably know, penguins are birds, but they can't fly. So it would be a very long way to travel.
Yeah. Oh, an example sentence for migrate. Birds migrate in winter.
All right, now let's go to Hanny.
刚刚说企鹅已经发展出能够在极端环境下生存的能力，它们的身体以一种可以防止热量流失的特殊方式来循环血液，而且它们擅长游泳，还可以潜入深海捕食各种的海洋生物。课文接着抛出一个问题，那既然北极的条件没有南极那么极端，为什么企鹅没有迁徙到那边呢？我们先来看单字 dive， 它是动词，表示潜水下潜，它还有跳水的意思。这时候 Matt 老师解释单字时用到 plunge，P-L-U-N-G-E，plunge 它可以表达跳进或者纵身投入的意思。老师还用到副词 head first， 就可以表达移动时是头朝下地。下一个单字 migrate， 它是动词，表达迁徙或移居。这边还有一个重点是 given 当介系词可以表达考虑到、鉴于怎么样、既然怎么样，那么后面可以接名词，或是接 WH 疑问词所引导的名词子句，或是接 that 子句。我们来看两个例句。Given her young age, she's pretty mature. 考虑到她年纪轻轻，她的心智相当成熟。Given that we don't have much time, we need to speed things up a bit. 考虑到我们没多少时间，得让事情进行得快一点。好，那接回课文中。
Okay, so we've got some information about penguins now, and about how they actually have a worse time than polar bears because it's so cold and it's so windy. So we've asked the question of why don't they just leave? Because I would. If I were a penguin, I wouldn't go to the North Pole. I would go somewhere warm and sunny and maybe, go to Hawaii.
That would be nice.
Maybe go somewhere with a nice beach. I don't know why those penguins bother living in such a terrible place.
Well, because they can. And it's just, they don't have to compete with more animals. All right, so let's go into the second part of the article and we'll be right back with you.
Unlike most birds, penguins cannot fly, so their ability to migrate long distances is rather limited. In addition, while Antarctic waters are rich in food, waters farther north are much less so. Therefore, surviving any journey north would be very difficult. Penguins also nest on land, which makes them particularly vulnerable to animals such as foxes and bears. These animals are common in the Arctic, but not found in Antarctica. In short, penguins are better off just where they are. This keeps them safe from threats like polar bears, which luckily they only ever meet in zoos.
Welcome back, everybody. So before the break, we were learning more about the penguin and how it's able to endure more than the polar bears, right? They're in more extreme cold weather conditions, down to minus 60 degrees Celsius. That's crazy.
That's right. So we've asked the question, why don't they go somewhere nicer or even somewhere similar but not as bad, like the North Pole where the polar bears live?
Yeah.
Unlike most birds, penguins cannot fly. So their ability to migrate long distances is rather limited. That's right. So they cannot fly there and they would have to swim there. So that'd be a long way to swim.
Very long. Okay, so in addition, while Antarctic waters are rich in food, waters farther north are much less so. Therefore, surviving any journey north would be very difficult. Okay, so obviously they would have to worry about food as well.
Okay, so penguins also nest on land, which makes them particularly vulnerable to animals such as foxes and bears.
Ooh, a lot of other predators.
So a lot of things that maybe eat their eggs. So it says they nest on land. So to nest is when you make or use usually a bird makes or uses a structure to lay their eggs in. So to lay their eggs and to keep those eggs until they hatch, until they have some young, some chicks in this case. So some penguin chicks that would hatch from the eggs, and those could also be kept in the nest. So when we say they nest on land, it means that they don't have their nests in the water. They need to have them on the land, and that makes it so that if there are other animals like foxes or bears around, they could possibly eat those eggs or the young penguins. We have an example sentence. Sea turtles nest in holes in the sand.
Okay, so particularly means especially or more than usual. For example, Judy is particularly good at drawing. All right, continuing. These animals are common in the Arctic, but not found in Antarctica. Okay, so these animals, these predators, I guess that penguins don't have to worry about them right now. So why go to a place where, you have additional things to worry about, right? And less food supply.
That's all right. All right, let's go to Hanny now.
回到刚刚的问题，那既然北极的条件没有南极那么极端，为什么企鹅没有迁徙到那边呢？首先啊，就是企鹅它没办法飞行，所以长途迁徙的能力十分有限。那么南极水域的食物丰富，在更北方的海域食物就会少很多，所以呢，要在北上的这个旅途中存活下来会非常困难。另外，企鹅会在陆地上筑巢，这使得它们特别容易受到狐狸和熊等等动物的攻击。那这些动物在北极很常见，可是在南极却不存在。好，说到动物攻击 ，Nina 老师提到 predator 这个字 ，Predator 可以表达掠食性动物或掠食者。那么课文单字 nest 当动词可以表达筑巢、做窝的意思，还有 particularly 这个副词则表示特别、尤其。接华课文中。
Okay, let's get back to the article. In short, penguins are better off just where they are. This keeps them safe from threats like polar bears, which luckily they only ever meet in zoos. I'm not even sure they should be meeting in zoos.
I don't think
I think
so.
they should be in separate areas.
Maybe they meet through the glass.
Yes, maybe they can see each other from their cages. All right, so it keeps them safe from threats. So a threat is something that could harm or endanger something else. So if something is a threat, it means it could hurt. If something is a threat to you, it could hurt you, it could harm you, it could just do bad things to you, things that you don't want to happen. So when we talk about things that are a threat to penguins, we mean the animals that might hunt them, might try to eat them, might eat their eggs. These are all threats to a penguin. All right, so I have an example sentence. Hunting is a serious threat to rare animals. All right, now let's go to Henny.
综合以上的因素，企鹅还是乖乖留在他们现在的栖息地就好，这可以让他们远离北极熊等等的威胁。幸好啊，他们也只会在动物园相遇。好，单字 threat 这个名词，它可以表达构成威胁的人事物，或是表达威胁。那最后一个文法重点是关系代名词 which 的用法。关系代名词 which 引导非限定的形容词子句时，可以补述说明前面的句子，或者是明确的先行词。这时候 which 的前面必须加逗号，而且不能用 that 代替。我们造两个例句 ：Nick got a 0 on the math test, which made his mother angry. Nick 数学考0分，这让他妈妈很生气。这时候 which 是代指 Nick 数学考0分的这件事，而 which 引导形容词子句用来补述说明这件事让他妈妈很生气。好，第二个例句是 She lives in Seoul, which is the capital of South Korea. 她住在首尔，那是南韩的首都。那么 Seoul 首尔它是特定明确的先行词 ，which 引导形容词子句来补充说明首尔是南韩的首都。好，那我们接着回到课文中。
Okay, now we have a what do you think? Why do you think people believe polar bears and penguins live together?
Well, I think that, at least when I was a kid, there was a lot of like TV shows and cartoons and movies and stuff where in the cartoon, they would go to some cold place, and at that place, there would be both penguins and polar bears in the same place. So
That's
there were
true.
many, movies, cartoons, and like even you'd see on some advertisements for companies, you might see penguins and polar bears together. So you would just think these animals must live together. Polar bears must eat penguins sometimes. That's just something they do.
Yeah, I think that's a very common misconception. Also because whenever you do see a polar bear or a penguin on TV, they live in such similar looking environments, right?
That's right. Yeah, when you see them against the white backdrop of snow and it looks cold, you could just think that's probably the same place.
Yeah.
All right, now let's review the article again, but we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Though it's true that polar bears have it rough in the Arctic, penguins have it even worse. Antarctica experiences fierce freezing winds and winter temperatures as low as -60 degrees Celsius. Still, penguins have developed abilities to survive these extreme conditions. Their bodies circulate blood in a special way that prevents heat loss. Also, they can swim almost as well as any fish and dive deep to hunt a variety of sea creatures. Given that conditions in the Arctic are generally less extreme than those in Antarctica, why haven't penguins migrated there? Unlike most birds, penguins cannot fly, so their ability to migrate long distances is rather limited. In addition, while Antarctic waters are rich in food, waters farther north are much less so. Therefore, surviving any journey north would be very difficult. Penguins also nest on land, which makes them particularly vulnerable to animals such as foxes and bears. These animals are common in the Arctic, but not found in Antarctica. In short, penguins are better off just where they are. This keeps them safe from threats like polar bears, which luckily they only ever meet in zoos.
最后我们来复习今天课文里的单字文法。单字的部分有 extreme 是形容极端的、极度的。dive 它表示潜水、下潜或跳水，是个动词。nest 在这边当动词，表示筑巢或是做窝。particularly 这个副词表示特别、尤其。threat 是名词，表示构成威胁的人事物，或者是表达威胁。文法的部分，我们第一个学到 it's 形容词加 that 子句，可以表达什么什么是怎么样的。那么句型中的 it 是虚主词，用来代替真正的主词 that 子句。第二个学到 given 当介系词，可以表达考虑到、鉴于或是既然怎么样，后面可以接名词或是接 WH 疑问词引导的名词子句，或者是接 that 子句。第三个学到关系代名词 which 引导非限定用法的这个形容词子句时呢，我们可以用来补述说明前面的句子，或是补述说明明确的先行词。这时候 which 前面必须加逗号，而且不能用 that 代替。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Fitness, or the condition of being physically strong and healthy, is something all of us must incorporate into our daily lives. The best way to do that is to exercise. Today, we are going to explore the perfect place to stay fit, the Tamsui Civil Sports Center. The Tamsui Civil Sports Center building looks like a sailboat. Inside, it has a swimming pool, ball courts, a fitness center, and more. The center's swimming education stands out. Its classes teach people about water safety. They also help people develop an interest in water sports. Other classes, such as kayaking and rock climbing, are also available. The center hopes it can help Tamsui become healthy, happy, and full of life. Next time you're in the Tamsui area and you're looking to get in a good workout, just look for that building that looks like a sailboat. The Tamsui Civil Sports Center awaits you.